known as supporters, blows his whistle. George Moncur steps up and scores! Bottom corner of the net, the goalkeeper was very close, and it's George. He lets in a low cross, and it's been turned in, and Lions are back on level terms. He'll come to James, he shoots! Oh, and a goal from Tom James! That was a volley, and that was... It's a low cross, it's an inviting cross, and it's been turned in by Theo Archibald, and he celebrates in front of the travelling faithful.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to Orient Live. We hope you've had an excellent Good Friday so far, and I hope you're ready for another mammoth League 2 fixture, because with just 8 games to go, it's another big one today as the O's are facing Salford up at the Peninsula Stadium. And I'm delighted to be joined here in the studio by Andrew Butler and Brendan Pitcher. And boys, it is exciting. It feels like spring has begun and the running has also truly begun.
Yeah, it always feels like you get to this Easter period and the sun comes out and it feels like that vital time of the season where we've really got to kick into gear. But after last weekend's result, it's a little bit, you don't want to get complacent, but that last weekend's result was so massive that it takes a little bit of the importance off. But I know Richie will be trying to kind of instill that mentality in the team where there's no room for complacency, and we want to get it all wrapped up and sorted as quickly as possible, starting with today.
The discussion last week was obviously that Carlisle had their eyes on the automatic spots. This week, it's another tough fixture. Salford's trying to really cement their playoff positions. It's another tough one.
Yeah, it's a really tough one. I think actually on paper it's one of the hardest games that we have in the season. And coming into this game, Salford have been in excellent form. Obviously, we've been also in very, very decent form too. So I think I agree with Brendan in terms of getting the job done and making sure that we're not complacent. I think complacency, you cannot allow that to settle in. But it's also about stamping your authority on these sort of games and making sure that we go to Salford, which is a place that we've never actually won a game. And what a time today would be to get that first win.
Way to start with some positivity there, Andrew. But now I'm sure Richie will be making sure that there is no complacency in today's team. And so let's take a look at how the O's are lining up with just the one enforced change with Charlie Kelman out. Suspended Ruel Sotiriou comes in, who maybe scored. We'll discuss that in a bit. But here's the lineup in full. In goal, we have, of course, number 22, Lawrence Vigouroux. We have our back four, number 32, Rob Hunt, number 19, Omar Beckles, number 43, Ed Turns, and 24, Jaden Sweeney. In the midfield, we have the captain, number 18, Darren Pratley, number 15, Idris El Mazouni, and number 14, George Moncur. And then in the attacking positions this afternoon is number 34, Kieran Sadlier, number 10, Ruel Sotiriou, and number 7, Paul Smith. And on the bench for Leyton Orient is Sam Sargent, Tom James, Adam Thompson, Craig Clay, Jordan Brown, Jamie McCart, and Stephen Duke McKenna returns to take a spot on the bench. So just the one enforced change there, and let's start with it then. It's Ruel Sotiriou who comes in, and you imagine he'll be playing through the middle, but it's a tricky one to call when you've got so many versatile attackers. Yeah,
it could be one of the most kind of interesting tactical shapes Richie will have named all season, because I think he's been quite clear about the fact that he probably doesn't see Ruel as a natural number 9. He prefers him either in a number 10 position or coming in from the flank, and I think he likes different things from his strikers, from his number 9, and Ruel probably doesn't have quite the physicality or maybe the pressing talent to do what Richie wants. But it's a great chance, because I'm sure maybe if you ask Ruel, he might see himself as a striker, and I'm sure he's been chomping at the bit for a while, maybe to get a run up front. So today that starts with the enforced change, because there's no Aaron Dryden or Charlie Kelman. It's a great chance for Ruel to come in and seize his place, because I think that striker slot is up for grabs in this team, because neither Aaron Dryden or Charlie Kelman have really made it their own yet this season.
And Ruel got a fantastic goal against Colchester. He contributed to the only goal against Carlisle. I don't think it was officially accredited to him, but he's got goals in him, and if he's confident going through the middle, you know that if he gets a chance, he probably will finish it.
Yeah, he causes problems, and I think throughout his entire career, we know this because we've seen him from such a young age, that he does cause defences problems in most games that he plays. Sometimes it feels like he's better off the bench and making an impact from that place, and certainly that was the case last weekend against Carlisle, it was his impact that led to the goal. I suppose it wasn't really his goal, but he can be a really, really tricky player, and he also can be quite streaky as well. Throughout most of his career, he's had periods where he's been really on it, and then fallen away just a little bit. So we're in this period where he's looking full of confidence. He got that goal against Colchester, like you say. He contributed last week against Carlisle, and I think in games like today, you can see in the first kind of 10-15 minutes probably what he's going to be doing to the defence. So if he's confident and he really takes the game to their defence, and if he gets on the ball, because sometimes when he plays in that number 9 role, sometimes he does struggle to get on the ball, and he drops a little bit deep, looks a little bit lost. But if he can get on the ball and cause their defence problems, then behind him is Smith, Moncur and Sadlier, which is frightening for most League Two defences.
It is, and we'll come on to them shortly, but just sticking with Ruel then, and if you look at the strikers we've had at our disposal in recent weeks, months, Charlie Kelman and Aaron Drinan have done a great job for the team and in the build-up play, but neither of them have really hit much scoring form. So I don't know, if you maybe look at Ruel coming in today, Salford might not know what to expect with an Orient side with Ruel Sotirio spearheading that. Yeah,
I think it's a natural option if you're not looking at it from like Richie's point of view, where he has this way of playing and he wants it. But if you're just thinking of Ruel's played up front before, Ruel's in good form, he's on probably a most natural finisher. If there's a chance to go to a player, then I think I'd back Ruel to be the one to take it. So it's just about that. If he can add that other side to his game with what Richie wants in terms of that kind of tactical flexibility and holding the ball up and running the channels and pressing defenders, if he can do all of that, then I think he could well make this position his own. And like you say, Salford haven't seen Ruel Sotirio play up front this season because he hasn't, so they don't know what to expect. They could be second guessing themselves. We've got Paul Smith there who has played up front a couple of times this season, so could be interchangeable, could be a little bit fluid there, and I'm interested to see how it works out today.
We also should point out that Ruel last week when he came on, I know he was only on the pitch for about 20 minutes or so, but it was so pleasing to see when we were down to 10 men. He really caused a problem in terms of alleviating the pressure on the back line, but also really coming back and making defensive contributions as well. He made a tackle pretty much at right back at the end of last week's game, and it was just really pleasing to see that, because we know that this club means a lot to him. We know probably what this run of form that the club's been on for the entirety of this season pretty much probably means to him as well. And so I think it's nice. It was really nice to see him contributing in that way and kind of dragging us over the line, which it was in the end last Saturday.
Certainly was, and Brennan touched on it, but Paul Smith as well. I think towards the end of pre-season and maybe the first couple of games before Kelman joined on loan, Paul Smith was playing through the middle, and it's an option, and not necessarily one that maybe we'll start with, but it's Richie's got options, hasn't he?
Well, we shouldn't discount the idea that might actually be how we line up today, because Ruel has played out on the right as well, and Smith actually even last weekend against Carlisle, there was about a 10-minute period where Kelman moved out to the right-hand side and Smith moved into the middle, and we've seen it, and it is something that Richie does employ a little bit, which is putting players in different positions and just seeing how the opposition defence goes up against that, because they're all so talented, they're all so dangerous as players that you can manufacture it a little bit and just change it to see what the defence has it in them to try and nullify our attack.
And of course on a weekend such as this one, George Moncur will hopefully be full of beans. And you look at some of his performances in the last few weeks, and the chances he's been creating, the way he's been playing, you could probably put yourself up top and we might nick a goal or two. He's really looked on fire in recent weeks, George.
That's generous to me. You've seen me play football. George Moncur, I think he's probably had his best game in an Orient shirt last week. I think it went under the radar a little bit because obviously didn't score, didn't get an assist, but I thought he was very positive in everything he did. I think he really kind of He looked like a player that was above League Two level, which is what we've been told all season when we've seen him play previously for other clubs. And when he came in, it was kind of that marquee signing. He was a little bit slow to settle, and he showed it in flashes. But now I feel like he's getting a real run of games. He looks fit and hungry, and he looks like he's ready to kind of lead the charge and take some responsibility. And I think he thrives on this pressure that's under us in terms of we want to get promotion, we want to get the title. I think that's what he's there for, and I've really been impressed with him, not just last week, but in the weeks prior. And I feel like it's leading up to kind of one of those performances where you think, oh, this is George Moncur's game, where he gets maybe 2 goals, 2 assists, and really puts his stamp on a game.
This would be a 4-0 win then by those calculations. And looking at, obviously, he can float about, he can play out wide, he can cut in, he can do it all. Kieran Sadley is similar as well. It's just a very kind of, more so than normal, it's a very flexible front four, you could call it today.
Yeah, absolutely. You could stick any of those players in any of those front four positions. I think they could do a job in there, and that's not something you often see at League Two level. And that's why, if I was Salford, I'd be coming into it a little bit scared, a little bit worried, because you don't know what to expect. If I'm Salford's right back, I don't know if I'm going to be facing Paul Smith, Kieran Sadley, or Roel Sotiriou. You can't prepare for that sort of opponent, and that does have an effect when you're doing your preparation for games.
And let's just look at the defence then quickly, Andrew. We're talking a lot about the attack, but the defending's going to be key today, as it always is, I suppose. But Jayden Sweeney is a man in fine form, and another one similar to Roel Sotiriou. We spoke to him last week, and you know what this running will mean to him, the amount of time he's been at the club, and he's really performing as well. He's been superb since he's come in and made that spot pretty much his own. Rob Hunt moving over to right back this afternoon, but Jayden's been fantastic since he's slotted in there at left back, and he's had to wait a while, but he's really taken that opportunity when it's come to him. He drives forward really, really well, and a lot of these clips that we'll see is actually him in such an advanced position that you'd be forgiven for thinking that he wasn't actually a defender, but actually more of an attacking player, because the places that he pops up on the pitch and what he can provide for the team in that respect is really important. More so just for keeping their right backs pinned back. He provides this sort of level of play, but actually going back as well in defence, he barely puts a foot wrong either. So he's been fantastic. It was a brilliant interview with him after the game last Saturday, where he was like us basically. He was there at Wembley in 2014, and so I think for players and for someone like him, he knows what it means, and I'm sure he'll be absolutely delighted by the fact that he's had this run in the form, running the team, and that his form's been a really, really high level. Right then, kickoff is shortly upon us on this Good Friday fixture, and of course, if you're watching on live on YouTube, then don't forget today is available to stream for all fans worldwide, including in the UK. So head over to the Orient website that's on the screen now to pick up your match streaming pass to watch along with us here on Orient Live. But now, let's hear from the pre-match thoughts of Orient manager Richie Wellens.
It's all about momentum at this end of the season. Salford, one of those teams who certainly picked up momentum going into this kind of last run of games. What kind of game can we expect with them?
Oh, I think they're a good football team. Technical players, small technical players who can handle the ball. I've watched a couple of their games. I watched them a few weeks ago at Mansfield. Very, very good. I watched the game the other night against Stockport. Stockport put it on them a little bit in the first 20 minutes. When Salford come back into it, I think in Callum Hendry they've got a really good footballer, a 9 that likes to drop in, and he leaves space in behind for others to run into. They've got goals spread about the team. Someone like Galbraith I've worked with before, and they've got different. I think Woody's a good coach. He can play different systems. Sometimes they send the right back in to play as a midfield player. They keep the 8s high and wide when we play with one holding midfield player. So they've got loads of different ways of playing. I think Woody's gone in there and he's done a good job.
As a manager, do you prefer these types of games where you're up against a more technical side?
What do you think? Sometimes in this league you get sick of saying you've got to get to the ball, you've got to stop and playing it long, you've got to stop crosses, you've got to get on second balls, and they can be tough. When you actually sit down and watch a team play and rotate and show you and it becomes more tactical, that's when it becomes enjoyable for us. So Salford are one of them teams. Bradford, I remember early in the season when we played them at home, that was a good game to look at certain things that they done. But yeah, in a way it makes it easy for us as well, because you're not just, you see that teams that just lump it forward, they're just hoping that the ball bounces from, and it can be difficult. So yeah, I much prefer this.
First time going back to Salford as a manager, does that really add anything to the occasion for you?
Not really, because to be honest, it was like I was never there, if I'm being honest. It was a difficult time for everybody with COVID. I never managed a game for them in front of supporters. So, I think I've definitely moved on. I think they've moved on, and good luck to them. It was just one of them things where it didn't work out. But I do think that the circumstances where, you look at the connection I have with the supporters here and everything's just going really smoothly, and that's what you want as a manager. But when you're managing in front of an empty stadium and there's echoes all around the place, and there's no intensity to any of the games. You know, it can be really difficult. So, like I said, I've never managed a game there in front of supporters, apart from when I managed a Swindon team there. So yeah, I think you just move on and just get on with it.
Top stuff there from Richie, and of course, as he said last Saturday, that connection between the fans and the players after the win over Carlisle was electric, and we've got a chance to experience it all over again this Easter Monday when Harrogate travel to E10, and it's a sold-out fixture here at Brisbane Road, and of course, it's Retro Day as well, so if you're coming down, if you're lucky enough to have a ticket, then pop your retro shirt on and get yourself down here. There's also going to be some retro O-nuts for you as well, and we'll be trialling the Swipe Station pre-ordering food service in the West Stand, so head over to the Orient website, download the app, and get ahead of the game for that one. But now it's all eyes on Salford. So let's take a look at the home side for this afternoon fixture and how Neil Wood is lining up with his Salford side. In goal for Salford is number 12, Alex Cairns. Number 3, the captain, is Ibu Torre. Number 6, Elliot Watts. Number 9, Callum Hendry. Number 14, Stevie Mallon. Number 15, Adrian Mariappa. Number 16, Ethan Galbraith. 20, Louis Barry. Number 24, Luke Bolton. Number 26, Ryan Leake. And number 32, Liam Shepherd. And on the bench for Salford is Belagambi, Lowe, Lund, Smith, McElhenney, Morton and Vassell. And so there is how Salford are lining up, and having lost just one of their last 5 and scoring lots of goals in the process, we can tell that they're a good side and there's a lot of good players in there.
Yeah, they're one of the most formed teams in the division for me. I think it's a little bit misleading because they've had a tough run at times, and the results, they might not be top of the form table is what I'm trying to say, but in terms of their recent results, the way they're playing, the way they're scoring goals, it's probably, for me, I think Butler was saying before the game about how big of a test it is. I think it's our biggest test for me since Stevenage away earlier in the season, because I think they're going to come out and play a good brand of football in a 4-2-3-1 with a lot of good technical footballers, but I think that's a game that suits us. I think we like it when, like Richie alluded to in his interview there, we like it when it's not a big physical battle. You've got to win your second balls. We like it when we can play football and get it down on the deck and we can try and out-football teams. I think looking at the pitch today, it's a little bit bobbly in places, and that might hinder us a little bit, but I think it could be a really good football game today between two good footballing teams.
It is an interesting point, because Richie picked out the Bradford game where I remember when they came to us in December, everyone thought they're a good side, they're on the up, good manager, and when they tried to come toe-to-toe in our footballing sense, we brushed them aside with ease. You fear today might be a little bit trickier?
I think it will be a little bit trickier. I think it will be a similar type of game in so much as that Salford, the division's top scorers, they've got 61 goals in League Two, and they look good for it as well. Even that one game that they lost in their last 5 was against Crewe. They lost that 4-3. They've scored 3 goals in 4 of their last 5 games, and so you can kind of see how attacking they are, how prolific they've been up front, and actually, strangely to mention the Bradford game, that was the last time that we scored 3 goals. We've won most of our games by just 1 goal or 2, and so we haven't scored 3 since December last year, whereas Salford have scored 3 in 4 of their last 5. So they're very, very prolific, very attacking, but they are there to be got at in defence as well. They haven't kept a clean sheet since January this year, and so they do concede goals, and that's somewhere obviously that we need to be targeting, of course. And you look at their back line, someone like Adrian Mariappa are up against Paul Smith, and that's where I think, we were mentioning about Smith playing through the middle, perhaps Smith will have him on toast. So it'll be a very intriguing game. I think there will be, I'll be surprised if either of teams keep a clean sheet, which is surprising for us because we've been incredible in keeping clean sheets so far this season. But Salford do score goals, and we've just got to match them for it.
4 changes from their win last week, which you were a bit surprised about, Brendan. Maybe might allude to lack of cohesion, maybe, if we're going to try and be optimistic.
Yeah, I was a little bit shocked because they did draw at Stockport last week, and that was a good result on paper. I think going away at Stockport and getting a point is decent enough, but 4 changes shows that Neil Wood probably wasn't happy, unless there's further injuries in the camp that we don't know about. But I think Andrew's right to pick out Adrian Mariappa. That's a player that hasn't played a lot of football at all this season. I think he had a spell at Burton earlier in the season, left them in December, and hasn't really played since. I think he might have come off the bench a couple of times for Salford, but this is his first start for some time. And if you've got, like you say, players like Paul Smith, Rael Satiru, George Moncur running at a player that is going to be very, very short on match fitness. That's something we can exploit definitely. And looking at the game in general, I think if you look back at the season as a whole, I think we've had really, really good results across all our games a lot of the time. But for me, the most complete performance was actually the 1-0 victory against Salford here at Brisbane Road, where Paul Smith scored that brilliant goal. It could have been a lot more than 1-0 on that day. And I think that shows that, I think, Neil Wood's side were a little bit of a work in progress at Salford. They tried to play it around, and they probably weren't as cohesive in attack as they were, but they tried to play a kind of a short brand of football and tried to play attractive football, and we dominated that day. So I think that does further the case of the fact that we like to play these kind of teams where they'll keep the ball on the deck.
I think we should look at that game earlier in the season, that when we beat them here at Brisbane Road 1-0, because we should look at that to give us a great deal of confidence, because, like I said, Salford are a team that, for one reason or another, we've always struggled to get big results against. We remember probably with no fondness in any way whatsoever the time that they came here and turned us over 3-0 in the National League. We've had hard-fought draws against them up at their place in the kind of. I know we haven't played them very many times in the entire history of their club, but that result here earlier in the season, when Paul Smith scored that excellent goal, also was just so comfortable. It was in that period where we were going 1-0 up and just thinking, right, we'll win this game, and that's rare as a football fan to just think, right, once we get the goal, we'll sit on that and we will see this out. And I think obviously you would be nervous against Salford if you're 1-0 up, and especially in a game like today, because, like I said, they have been scoring a lot of goals of late, but that should give us a great deal of confidence going into today's game, that we have already beaten them this season. We are where we are in the table for good reason. They are where they are, and admittedly, okay, on the up a little bit, but we should go in there with a great deal of confidence.
And if we want to look at where Salford's goals are coming from, and if we want to stop them at their source, then Elliot Watt's the man that we've picked out to try and to muffle today. Yeah,
I mean, tricky guy to keep a lid on. He kind of plays a more central but also defensive midfielder position, but you wouldn't know that because he does get everywhere. His range of passing is excellent. He's got 15 assists and no goals, which kind of shows what type of a player he is. He sets people off on their way and lets the forwards do their business. He's also a real threat from set pieces, so he takes their corners, their free kicks. They've been a real danger, Salford, from set pieces this season, so we really need to be alive to that threat. But yeah, he's been excellent. He's got the most assists in League Two by some distance, and he's a real problem.
As we're sitting here, Brendan, we probably want to make sure we don't give any free kicks away in dangerous positions. Try and not concede any corners either, because he is dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's a player that's been probably playing in League Two for too long now, in terms of, I think he was at Bradford for a little bit, and I think their style of play didn't really suit him. He's gone to Salford, where they like to, like we've mentioned, they like to play football, like to get the ball on the deck, and he really controls the play and dictates it in that kind of fashion from deep, and gets a lot of assists. And I think he's one of the better players in this league, and whether Salford do get out of League Two or not this season, I think he won't be a League Two player next season, it's safe to say.
Idris El-Mazouni and Darren Prattley will need to be on their toes, and probably on his toes as well, and making sure they win those battles in midfield. Do you feel that will be quite crucial today? Yeah,
it's a really good battle in there. I think they've got, it's not just Elliot Watt, they've got Ethan Galbraith, who's been around the United Academy. He's a really good technical footballer, and Stevie Mallon, who again is another good League Two central midfielder. So there's a lot of, it's going to be a big battle in there today. But we said the same last weekend against Carlisle. I remember having this exact conversation with you about Owen Moxon, who was probably their best player and is a central midfielder and was dictating play and looked like he was going to cause us trouble, and he didn't cause us that much trouble against us last weekend. And that's because I think Idris El-Mazouni and Prattley did a job on him in the first half, and then Jordan Brown followed that up in the second half. So we've proven in recent times that we can stop these kind of players at source.
And I think that's really important, because whilst we speak a lot about our attacking options in a game like today, Ollie, you're right to pick out the fact that we have players like Idris El-Mazouni and Darren Prattley who are just so big in the middle of the park there, because I know we don't speak about Idris El-Mazouni as much as we probably should, but our counterparts at Salford are probably doing exactly the same thing, looking at our team and going, they've got a lot of quality in there, and Idris El Mazouni would be probably a player that they pick out for a real danger for us going up to there. So yeah, it'll be a real battle. And like we said, I expect there to be goals, but the game will probably be won in that area of the pitch, and just who can come out on top.
Well, it is certainly an interesting one, and let's stop talking about Salford City because it's all about the O's now, and we're delighted to be bringing you a fresh interview hot off the press as Luke Lambourne talks to Rob Hunt live from the Peninsula Stadium.
Honey, thanks for joining us today. It's a lovely day here in Salford and it should be a good game.
Yeah, it's a good game, one we're looking forward to, two good teams, and hopefully we can come out with a positive result.
Good football inside Salford, what can we expect from them?
Yeah, they're a good football inside. We've done our analysis and what we should do. Should be a good footballing game, two teams that want to pass the ball, so yeah, hopefully a good game to watch.
In terms of confidence, how big was that win last Saturday against Carlisle and getting those 3 points?
Yeah, obviously winning any games, brings confidence in that. I just think we need to keep doing what we've been doing, and that's got us in this situation, so hopefully we can do that today.
Obviously you've been back in the team now, you had that little injury and back in. How are you feeling in terms of fitness, in terms of match sharpness, because they're two different things, aren't they?
Yeah, fitness all good. When you're injured, keeps you on your toes, so no, it's good. Match fitness, feel fine. It was good to get through last week, so yeah, ready to go.
So obviously a big following here today from the O's, I think about 800. Is that kind of excitement felt in the dressing room as well today?
Yeah, definitely. The fans have been brilliant all year, home and away. Especially for them to come all this way. Great number to come, so yeah, hopefully we'll give them a positive result at the end.
So maybe it wasn't quite live, but it was very nearly live. But looking at Rob Hunt and some of the other defenders in there, another clean sheet would be fantastic today. And when you've got some of the players in there in the heart of defence, are you confident, Brendan?
Yeah, definitely. We've got a good settled back four in there now with players in their natural positions, and given how we played against Carlisle, there's no reason to think we can put in a similar performance today.
And Andrew, the 800 Orient fans, we remember the first game of the season here back in 2018. It's a new stadium that holds a lot of memories for Orient fans, and hopefully some more to be made today.
Yeah, I was there last season. I was in August, wasn't it? Last season, and I know we haven't come away with a victory there thus far, but hopefully today will be the day.
Hopefully indeed. Well, that is all from us. It's very nearly time for kick-off, so let's head up to the Peninsula Stadium and join our match commentary team of Dave Victor and Matt Hiscock.
Good afternoon, welcome to Moor Lane for the return of Richie Wellens against his former club, of course, and he comes back with his side proudly top of the table against a Salford City side, the league's leading scorers, and a team that's